This is the 5th time I'm re-recording this video, and I'm starting to think that this script is just completely cursed. I know what you're thinking. Didn't you just put out a Genshin video, talk about something else? Oh brother, this guy stinks, etc. Well, I don't care. I say I can quit at any time I want, yet I can't put down the bottle. I don't really like turn-based RPGs. I've played a singular Pokemon game, I've played Fire Emblem 6 and 16, I've played the first act of Persona 5, but those are pretty atypical examples of the genre. I've never baldered my gate or chronoed my trigger, or even finaled my fantasy, so I am not at all what you would call experienced with these types of games. If it's not a series I already have some knowledge about regarding the characters in it, I won't really go out of my way to buy a turn-based game. Or any game, really. I am very easily swayed by the simple presence of characters. I've been looking for a physical copy of Guilty Gear Strive for the Switch for months on end, because I need Anji and Baiken the way I need my heart to continue beating. I need to sit nervously between them the way your typical little clunker of a Panic at the Disco themed Honda Civic would feel to drive between two Chad-like 16-wheelers, hauling industrial orders of both matches and fireworks. Anyway, in December of 2023, I started playing Genshin Impact, and I liked it. I liked it quite a bit, actually. Too much, probably. Way too much. Since I had unexpectedly enjoyed the game so much, I ended up reconsidering my stance on Honkai Star Rail. That stance being that I do not like turn-based games, so I do not want to download this game just to be bored or disappointed with it. That would be a waste of my time. 10 months later and the game is still wasting my time. I will admit, Boot Hill's banner did factor a whole lot into the whole FOMO part of things, and I really should have started playing like a month or two earlier so I could get a free Dr. Cleavage, but I didn't. This video will contain spoilers for the main storyline and additional story content in Honkai Star Rail, but only somewhat mildly, because I myself have only finished up until about the middle of the Penacony main quest and a little teeny tiny bit of Amphorius. If you want to skip the video entirely because you want to experience the game for your own, feel free. But if you don't mind some spoilers from someone else's perspective, consider sticking around if you want to give yourself a reason to fall in love with the game. Honkai Star Rail, which I will be shortening as HSR for the duration of the video, is, as I said, a turn-based role-playing game. One of 4 in the line of hoyoverse's Honkai games, yet you don't necessarily need to have played any of those to enjoy this one. The game's aesthetic and story is a general mixture of sci-fi and fantasy, influenced by real-world locations and cultures, with a modern lens thrown in there in the design, story, and dialogue. Multiple characters in this game know brain rot words. I hope Honkai Star Rail goes EOS in 9 days, I'm sure we can arrange a Persona 5 collab. Developed by hoyoverse, known at that time as MiHoYo, the company's first turn-based game would start its journey in 2019, with a relatively small team of 500 people working on it. 4 times as many as what had initially been assigned to their bigger game, Genshin Impact. Thanks to all of their previous Honkai games and the explosive pandemic-driven success of Genshin Impact, hoyoverse had a lot more money to throw at a lot more things. This game is relatively young, being officially announced in October of 2021, and entering closed tests and beta tests between that month and May of 2022. The third closed test for the game wouldn't end until February of the next year, and in April of 2023, the game was finally available for mobile, PC, and eventually the PlayStation 5 exclusively. So I guess it does have one game. You can also get it physically, like hold it in your hands, put it in the disk drive physical, for some reason. And then I guess when the game eventually goes defunct, you can like make the disc into a neat coaster or something. HSR medallion, maybe. As I mentioned before, hoyoverse had a much bigger wallet at this point, so they had a lot more money to sink into the advertising for this game. And if you're anything like me, you got sick to death of Natasha the Underworld Doctor mogging you in that 5 seconds of unskippable YouTube ad or on the sidebar. I don't forgive them for making one of their best characters the annoying ad lady, I don't. Advertising for the game would ramp up more and more over the past 2 years, notably being featured on the and sponsoring NBC's coverage of the 2024 Paris Olympics. What the hell? I thought this was some kind of big elaborate joke before I saw the actual official Honkai Star Rail TikTok post this. Oh my god, is that Luca Strongarm mentioned in official content? Two things that the company was considering going into the development for HSR was that their Honkai line of games have always been considered as playable animated series, and this game wasn't going to be any different. The action-oriented direction of Honkai Impact 3rd in particular was referenced as both an inspiration for and an example of what not to do heading into creating HSR. According to one of the game's producers, while the heavy action and sci-fi pizzazz of HI3 was what drew the audience into its story, the way it was implemented into the gameplay made it, to some players, too hard to understand and therefore, well, play. The hope was that the more familiar and simple mechanic of turn-based combat would help scale back the gameplay and put even more focus on the story. From what I can tell, a lot of thought and effort does go into making each planet fun to engage with, the developers treating that as the primary focus, then creating the characters to inhabit the planets, and then building the story around them. For example, the planet of Penacony is designed around the American classical Hollywood and Jazz Age era with its over-the-top Western influence, and to accompany this, the story that takes place on the planet is a murder mystery adjacent plot that I like so far, but have honestly been having a little bit of a hard time wrapping my head around. I think that's kind of the point, but then again, I haven't finished playing through that part of the story, and a lot of people say it isn't very good, but I'm working on the Marie Kondo method, whatever sparks joy type vibe. The characters in the game have a range of different influences, both generic and specific, with the clearest example I can think of being Robin, a singer who is based very heavily on Marilyn Monroe. This, of course, is just one example, as each planet and its stories and characters can have a range of influences and illusions based on what the planet itself was decided to be inspired by. It makes a lot of sense to me now that the overall destination is what the developers start with when expanding the universe. As for the story, you play as the Trailblazer, a person who has two appearances for you to choose from, who canonically also has the option to answer that they don't identify as neither male nor female, so I'll just be calling the Trailblazer by they/them pronouns and regarding them as you, the player. Your Trailblazer of choice begins the game being awakened by literally the coolest woman I've ever seen in my life, Franz Kafka, who finds you in some sort of capsule in a space station and shoves what is basically probably the equivalent of a dying star into your chest. You then wake up with no memories and almost get kissed by literally the coolest man I've seen in my life. Wait, I think I've played this game before. You spend the entire first prologue segments of the game fighting off scary monsters on the space station, now accompanied by your new partners, the aforementioned cool man named Don Hung and his more bubbly, extroverted friend March 7th. Wait, I think I've watched this show before. You help the space station's employees not die, and resolve the majority of the onslaught of monsters before almost exploding. Thankfully, the coolest man I have ever seen in my life stops you from blowing up and acting like you don't know nobody, and with that, you are now the latest addition to the crew of the Astral Express, the titular star rail which the game revolves around. Other than March and Don Hung, the senior members of the Express are Welt Yang, Zam, he's 83, I'm married to him, he was in Honkai Impact 3rd, but he's so much hotter in this game, and the coolest woman I've ever seen in my life, Himiko, who is both rage and elegance personified. If you think you're smarter than her, you're not. Pack it up. These two have been navigating the Express for years at this point with the help of its conductor, a rabbit creature named Pom Pom. Diversity win, the little creatureoid who runs the train goes by they/them pronouns. The crew, referred to at sometimes as the Nameless, have the main goal of simply mapping the universe, with the additional concern of addressing and destroying the Stellarons, which are those dying nuclear bomb star things, one of which is now part of you. In terms of how this storyline affects the gameplay, the player will traverse to different planets and eliminate the threats caused by the Stellaron on each planet. That is, depending on how closely each planet's affliction is related to the Stellaron. For example, the first real chapter of the story has you headed to a planet that has been suffering an eternal winter for centuries, caused directly by the presence of a Stellaron on the planet. The two most important factions you do need to be aware of are the Nameless and the Stellaron Hunters, the former of which you are already familiar with, the second of which is the collective that the cool woman who wakes you up in the beginning of the story belongs to. The role of the Stellaron Hunters in the game is basically, to the perspective of the player and the Nameless, to sow what looks like chaos wherever they go, under the guise of playing out fate exactly to the way it has been written. This obviously is at odds with the we can go anywhere we want and blaze new trails and make discoveries that nobody else has sentiment of the Nameless, At least that is what I have derived from what the core story is trying to say about those two, where the Stellaron hunters are basically like, some twink boy or something told us that God told him that XYZ is actually how things are supposed to go, and we're gonna do everything in our power to make sure it goes that way. They're not written necessarily as enemies, but as a balanced force, sort of a yin and yang type relationship. As of April of 2024, HSR has 5 different planets or such that the player can visit, those being the Herta space station where you begin the game, Eurilo 6, which is mainly referred to as Belobog as a whole, despite that only being the name of the city-state or wherever where the entire plotline of that planet takes place. The Xianzhou Luofu, basically one of 6 massive spaceships that make up the Xianzhou Alliance, Penacony, which I mentioned before is basically space old-timey Hollywood meets Vegas, and Amphorius, which is based on ancient Greece and some ancient Rome. Now that you're sort of familiar with what to expect from the story, we can move on to my favorite part. As someone who has now stated multiple times that they don't like turn-based stuff, I sure do get a lot of enjoyment out of this game's combat. In my opinion, at its core, this is sort of like baby's first turn-based RPG, in the way that it's not too hard to understand when you're starting, because the game sort of keeps you from getting too ahead of yourself before you're really ready for it. The tutorial explains the basic gameplay to you while integrating it into the story itself. You don't start the game playing as the Trailblazer, you start it as Kafka on her way to wake the Trailblazer up. The tutorial breaks down what your 3 basic commands in battle are. You have a basic attack and a skill down at the right corner of the screen. The basic attack is literally what it sounds like, the most basic attack you have at your disposal. Literally, everybody has these. You can choose which enemy to target with your cursor, but if you want to keep your hands off your mouse or trackpad or whatever, there's also keyboard controls for all the actions. You can use the A and D keys to shift your target. Whacking an enemy with a basic attack by clicking on the button or pressing Q will give you a skill point, and once you have a skill point, you can press the button or switch to the skill with E and use this skill point towards using it. What the skill does depends on which character you're using, but I'll talk about that in a minute here. How many enemies you can attack with one action also does depend on the character, but basically hitting things and being hit, as well as using your skill, will give you energy towards your ultimate, a round meter at the bottom left of your screen where your party information is. Once the meter is full, you can use your ultimate, and again, what this does entirely depends on the character. You can have a team of up to 4 characters, mirroring the party setup format of other turn-based like Persona and Final Fantasy, a relatively limited number to get you to strategize further about which characters you choose to deploy together. Basic things aside, let's get into what actually makes the game interesting to play. Like Genshin Impact, HSR is also a gacha game. Stay here, I'm not talking about the bad part yet. The game being a gacha means that there are all kinds of different characters for you to try and get, and specific parameters that set them apart from one another. Just like Genshin and a bunch of other similar games, there are different elements that each character can be assigned to, the ones in this game being fire, ice, lightning, wind, physical, quantum, and imaginary. The first 5 are pretty obvious about what they do, and the latter 2 are more abstract. Imaginary is kind of like light, and quantum is more space-like. The elements don't matter too much other than that your enemies will have specific weaknesses among these elements, which manifests as a toughness bar above each enemy's head that can only be broken down by that specific element. Every element also has some different sort of effect it can have on the enemy, such as ice characters being able to freeze enemies and delay their turn, and wind, physical, fire, and lightning characters applying effects that deal additional damage to the enemy when they go to take their turn. Other than that, they're treated more like a suggestion than a concrete blueprint to follow in the way that the elements appear aesthetically, also depending heavily on the design direction for the character. The most important thing is their paths. The most basic way I can describe it in terms of the story, paths are essentially the act of following after the gods, or aeons as the game calls them, that lead each path. For a character to follow a path lore-wise is to align themselves with the philosophies of a specific aeon who rules over a specific path. For a character to follow a path in terms of the game, however, means that the actions they can perform and the things they do in battle will be different compared to one another. 18 paths have been mentioned in the game storyline, 8 of them being playable. As of writing this, the 8 paths that are currently playable are Preservation, Nihility, The Hunt, Destruction, Remembrance, Erudition, Abundance, and Harmony. The additional 10 paths which could possibly become playable at some point are Elation, Order, Equilibrium, Finality, Enigmata, Propagation, Veracity, Permanence, Beauty, and Trailblaze. I'll go through and sort of explain the playable ones and what they do. For my first example, I'll talk about my personal favorite path, Nihility. The way it behaves in combat basically allows characters with this path to apply debuffs to enemies. What the debuff does to the enemy varies between each character, which is just the nature of each path having different ways it can be implemented, but debuffing is just the main thing these characters will do. Delaying the enemy's action, making them weaker, or removing buffs are just a few of the debuffs I can think of off the top of my head. All character counts are as of April 8th, 2024, and do include characters who were announced as upcoming before this date. The Path of Nihility currently has 12 playable characters and has at least one character with each element, those being Whelp, Sampo, Pela, Silverwolf, Luca, Kafka, Leonifin, Black Swan, Acheron, Jiaoqiu, Fugue, and Cypher. The Hunt is another path I'm a big fan of, and I kind of cursed myself into being really into two of the arguably more useless paths in the game, but it's fine, I didn't want to clear the endgame stuff anyway. The characters following the Path of the Hunt are characters you'll use as your main damage dealers, or DPS units as you'll see them be called. They can get really ramped up into doing a lot of damage, but focus mainly on wiping out single targets, making them particularly useful in boss fights. There are 10 playable characters following this path: Danheng, Yanqing, Zila, Xishang, Topaz, Dr. Ratio, Boot Hill, March 7th, Feixiao, and Moza, and there is one character for every element in this path. Destruction is kind of more abstract, but is mainly used for being sort of tanky, both doing a fair amount of damage and being hardier than your average character, making them pretty important if you want a team member that can both take out enemies and not get killed. When I said that some characters' attacks can hit more than just the one enemy, destruction characters are the ones I had in mind, even though they aren't the only ones who have this ability. It's just common for them to be able to attack like 3 of the enemies on field, I think. There are 12 characters in the Path of Destruction with at least one of each element, these being the Trailblazer, Arlen, Hook, Clara, Blade, Danheng, Jingliu, Zhai, Misha, Firefly, Yunli, and Mighty. Preservation is a pretty simple path. All this one does is apply shields to your characters and provides other sorts of buffs to help keep your team alive. It's also one of the smaller pools of characters, only having 5 at this point, those being the Trailblazer, March 7th, Japard, Fushen, and Aventurine. Only one of these characters is really good and he's blonde. I'll let you figure out who that is. We need more preservation characters, we're literally dying out here. There aren't any preservation characters for wind, physical, or lightning yet. Abundance, despite the name, is also limited in its characters, only having 7, but only missing a character with the ice element. These 7 playable abundance characters are Natasha, Bailu, Luocha, Lynx, Huahua, Gallagher, and Lingsha. Abundance characters are your healers, they just restore your team's health in a range of different ways. Remembrance characters can summon a little buddy to help them fight, adding an additional member to your party that attacks on its own at certain intervals. Remembrance is a newer path being made playable in the game's 3.0 update, so there's only 4 characters, those being the Trailblazer, Aglaya, Castorus, and Hyacinth. There are no fire, physical, or imaginary remembrance characters at this point. If you're dealing with a larger group of enemies at a time, you'll want to have an erudition character because, like destruction characters, those on the path of erudition can attack multiple enemies at once, with most of them having attacks allowing them to hit all 5 enemies on the field in one attack. There's 10 erudition characters, 1 for each element, which are Herda, Himiko, Serval, Jingyuan, Jingsha, Argenti, Jade, Rappa, Herda, and Anoxa. Finally, one of the most crucial paths, Harmony, encompasses characters who provide different buffs and benefits to your own team, so basically the inverse of Nihility. There are Harmony characters for every element, and there are 11 of them, those being Asta, Bronya, Tingyun, Yukong, Hanya, Ruan Mei, Sparkle, Trailblazer, Robin, Sunday, and Chibi. As you may have noticed, there are special cases for certain characters in regards to what paths they follow. The Trailblazer is the player character, and because of this, the game offers a few different paths you can choose for them to follow. The funniest thing is that almost nothing changes about their appearance, except the addition of some cool accessories that you don't even get to see anywhere but in the combat, okay. The kits available to them at this point are Physical Destruction, Fire Preservation, Imaginary Harmony, and Ice Remembrance. Similarly, March 7th has 2 different forms, those being her Ice Preservation base form that she starts the game with, and an imaginary hunt kit you can obtain through an in-game event. In these cases, you can swap the same Trailblazer character and the same March 7th character between their forms freely. It's as easy as pressing a toggle on their profile. However, some characters are lucky, or maybe unlucky, depending on how you perceive it, to get alternative forms that you have to gacha for. For example, I have both Danheng's Wind Hunt 4-star version and his Imaginary Destruction 5-star version. These are 2 separate characters that you could have both of on your team if you so choose. Other instances of this are Herda and the Herda, who are both Ice Erudition characters, the only difference being that one is a small 4-star, and the other is a much bigger, much cooler, much more powerful 5-star. And Tingyun and Fugue, Tingyun being a Lightning Harmony 4-star and Fugue being her Fire Nihility 5-star form. Something I like about this game is that despite the differences in gameplay, like Genshin, you're essentially free to do whatever the heck you want with your characters, make whatever team you want, and you'll still be able to clear most content in the main story, and you should only really need to optimize according to meta if you want to clear the harder content closer to the quote-unquote end of the game. There really isn't a suggested specific way to make a team that will help you get through the story, but in my experience, a healer or a shielder is absolutely a must. Pulling Aventurine so early in my gameplay journey was kind of like getting vaccinated against a myriad of diseases. Which all of us should do, pull Aventurine and get vaccinated. Now actually, right now. Unless it's the disease named Penacony Weekly Boss that shreds your shields like paper, in that case you might as well just bring one character that you want to see die over and over again. I hate that boss fight, I hate it so much. So you have your characters, yes, but they also have what is called a light cone slot on their profile, which is basically their weapon. 5 stars have light cones that are signature to them, and give them the best buffs they can possibly get, which makes them pretty invaluable to have, and I want to say every 4-star has one that's at least pretty optimized for their kit, but you do also have to pull for all of these, and now we can talk about... the dreaded gacha. Stay here. If you've somehow never played a gacha game, that is a lie. Yes, you have. If you've played stuff like Overwatch or CSGO, or maybe things more in the mobile realm like Cookie Run, Pokemon Master Sex, or God forbid, Fire Emblem Heroes, you've engaged in some sort of gacha. Gacha is a Japanese general term for any game, most usually anime styled, that utilizes a random number generator based system for obtaining items in game, with the word gacha itself having evolved from the word gachapon, the official brand of those little plastic containers you get out of a little machine for like a quarter or something. You've seen those. If you've ever bought one of those little trinkets for a quarter in a mall atrium, you've played a version of a gachapon. And if you've ever bought or otherwise opened a loot box in a video game that offers them, you've played a gacha game. Sorry to burst your bubble. There's a whole science to how gacha games and their marketing strategies, compared with what they offer, for how long, and for how much money or in-game currency, take advantage of the little ape piece of your brain that tells you to gamble your family's emergency funds away for a clump of pixels you can use to beat up other clumps of pixels. But my takeaway in regard to what kinds of things are most appealing to that little ape in your head originate from 3 different sources. What's in your brain, what's in your heart, and what's in your pants. What I mean by this is that you'll probably be more likely to try harder for something you want in a gacha game and potentially spend money if said thing comes from a place of logically requiring it, liking it a lot, or being aroused by it or otherwise attracted to it, for lack of a more tactful way to put it. Using HSR as the example here, in terms of logic, if you hear that a character who's being added into the gacha is going to give your entire account a global passive effect where she can revive someone on your team even if she isn't deployed on said team, you'd probably deduce that you should pull for her, right? Or, if you're like me, and instead of brain there is fish flakes, and the heavenly offerings of the meta do not call to you, maybe this doesn't work on you. Don't worry, we'll find something that will. If logic isn't your thing, maybe you're more of a feeler than a thinker, like me. Playing through the story will naturally get you attached to at least one, if not more, of the characters, and if you end up liking a character so much that you do anything to keep them around and be able to play as them, something I experience more often than I experience the desire for my team to be as meta as possible, you'll make a notable effort to pull for them when their banner comes along. Like I had mentioned at the beginning of the video, I actually started playing HSR mostly because Boothill's banner had started that week, and I had seen so many clips of him on TikTok, become so attached to him, even just from seeing a handful of the same clips of him being posted ad nauseum. I kind of fell in love with him as a character because I have a special place in my heart for silly men. This happened to me again with Lighter from Zenless Zone Zero, but the reason for that one probably belongs better in the next category. So I pulled for Boothill and was able to get him at 20 pity, and then the months blurred by and he naturally became a horrible investment because I didn't have the proper equipment for him. But then he had a Brendan Fraser-esque comeback where I was able to pick up his light cone on a rerun, and now he can do really cool stuff like this when I get him roided up. All of that is to say that if you pick out a character you like, you will naturally feel like putting in more effort. The final line of defense against people with self-control is the access to your wallet that gacha games can gain through your animal instincts. I'll just say it like this, you'd probably skip a character you found unattractive in favor of one who seems more attractive, or at least aesthetically favorable to you. There's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, Lighter. So big that thing has its own orbital pull. The only thing is that sometimes, especially in hoyoverse's case, they're trying to appeal to the lowest baseline they can by making characters who are just the most lab-grown sexy they can manage. And this usually means drawing a lot of attention to women's breasts and dressing them more scantily than the men and stuff like that. It's always been like that for practically every game, ever since game developers realized that some pixels could be arranged to look like little 8-bit boobies, and then eventually that a handful of polygons could make Lara Croft's snowplow of a chest, and then eventually, incorrectly, insist that fictional women can simultaneously have giant boobs and not have to wear a bra. Can we go back to the triangle boobs? I think those were a little bit more realistic. Objectifying women for profit is a much larger scale issue than I could possibly address in one small segment in a video on a game that has so many other facets to discuss, but I will say that, in comparison to what now is becoming more and more common, a realistic visual fan service aimed towards men, HSR actually isn't that bad. Boo me all you want. No, actually, before you start flinging bricks through my window, as somebody who has liked other entertainment and works with less discreet visual fan service, the stuff in HSR is tame by comparison, and it gets overshadowed by just how pleasing to the eye most of the characters are anyway. I think even what is there is easy enough to ignore in the first place. I know that plot-based fan service and the way a character regards you is also a big point of contention at this point, but it's literally stuff you can button mash through if you don't really care too much to linger on those lines. The only time I felt like the Trailblazer was clearly developing a somewhat romantic connection with a character was with Firefly, the one time that it's intended thematically and important to part of said character's story, and even with that, it's like I said, that's a part of it. There's so much more to her story, stuff about her background and the relationship she has with combat, to dealing with a chronic illness. I personally could care less about characters being a little bit clingy towards the player because a lot of, if not all of the time, this is only a single element of the whole picture of the character. Like, look, I sentence anyone who complains about this specific kind of fan service to playing Fire Emblem Shadows of Valentia. You don't know annoying clinginess to the player until you've gone toe-to-toe with Faye. Bottom line, in my opinion, the women in this game with bigger chests and quote-unquote fuller figures mainly kind of have them just to have them, and no real attention is really specifically drawn to them, by which I mean no overly unnecessary animation is applied to them in most cases, which I do like to see, even though the bar is very low. Like, for example, I'm a woman who has big boobs just because I have big boobs and they exist there on my body by no choice of my own, and it's nice to see that, like me, some of the women in HSR have big boobs just by circumstance of having them. It's reductive to throw around the gooner word when, compared to other game ads, especially ones I see on here, those make even the arguably most sexualized HSR woman look like a saint. Even though some of them do toe that line, I can't even think of an HSR character off the top of my head that I think is overtly or inappropriately sexy. Going, you're a gooner if you like this character, about certain characters who, lest we forget, also do come with a personality that can be liked separately from the character's appearance, is not the way, because that's making what problem that is there the community's fault, and not the company's. For example, I love Zila's character, but it is painfully obvious that they cared more about making her look sexy than they did making her look like she fits in where she lives. This design would be pretty for any old kind of sci-fi fantasy game, or any setting different than where she is, but she's supposed to live on a planet suffering an eternal winter. The better, more constructive discussion I think should be happening a little louder is the way that sexuality seeming to be treated as paramount for every single character they released is keeping them from doing some much cooler things. Designs for the women are consistently nice, but lacking in places where they could have made more sense, or been heightened if the designers were encouraged to proverbially take their hand out of their pants while they worked on characters. Like, Rappa has such a cool design, but literally just changing her shorts into pants not only feels much more true to her streetwear inspiration, but it also does help balance the design by so much. Same thing goes for characters like Jade and Fei Xiao. So many people have been waiting for a playable Scrollum, but the one reason why Hoyoverse hasn't done that yet is because he's not human and he's not sexy. One of those things is obviously a lie, but hey, whatever helps them sleep at night. I can't keep talking about this. So many people just need these games taken away from them.
I wanted to take a shower with him. No, I mean, I wanted to have him as a pet. Not a shower or make out with him. I mean, just.
those 3 reasons, let's say you've decided to pull for a character. In HSR, when a 5-star character is featured on a banner, this makes it so that the only 5-star you can get from this banner is that 5-star or one of the 7 standard ones, with an even 50-50 split rate. If you win your 50-50, you get the limited focus 5-star, and if you lose it, you'll randomly get one of the 7 standard ones. But it also means that you will be guaranteed to win the limited 5-star the next time you get one. You're guaranteed to get some kind of 5-star once you reach around 80 something pulls, I think, if you haven't got anything before then. And every 10 pulls guarantees at least one 4-star character or light cone. The light cone banners are similar but a little more forgiving. The basic outline is the same as they are for characters. You get the limited light cone if you win, a random standard one if you lose, guaranteed after that, guaranteed at least something by around 80 or so pulls, a 4-star something within every 10 pulls, but the rates are a little bit better. Instead of it being a 50-50, it's a 75-25 in the limited light cone's favor. For example, in the whole year that I've been playing by now, I've won my 75-25 on all 3 of the light cones I've pulled for thus far. Since it is possible to pull more than the 1 copy of a character, any additional copies will be converted into Eidolons, which are permanent buffs for each character. Everybody has up to 6 Eidolons they can get, and they come in the form of these pretty little portraits of the character. I think they're really neat and they're one of my favorite elements of the game just because of the additional story they paint out. This also goes for light cones, which can be upgraded up to 5 times. Some guy pulled 500 of Fei Xiao's light cone for literally no reason other than to burn money, I guess. So now you have the character you want and their optimal light cone or whatever light cone is optimal for whatever build you want to use. HSR characters have a range of different statistics, these being their HP, attack, defense, speed, which determines what order and how many times they can act in a single turn, critical hit rate, critical hit damage, effect hit rate, which determines the probability of elemental effects impacting the enemy, effect resistance, which determines the character's resistance to enemy effects, break effect, which controls the efficiency with which a character breaks down an enemy's strength bar, and finally a stat for their elemental damage boost. You'll want to maximize certain statistics depending on the character's kit. For example, Boot Hill's kit requires him to have a large break effect percentage, so his optimal light cone grants him a significant 60% break effect boost at its base superimposition. Another way to raise stats on your characters is by getting them relics, which are equipment pieces you can farm for. Your main relics are meant to be used in sets of 4 and give you different buffs for different stats for both a combination of 2 and the full combination of 4. There are also 2 slots for planar ornaments, which do the same thing, except you only need 2 of them. Different relic sets and planar ornament sets will have different stats they aim to focus on, so every character pretty much has an optimal combination of relics and planar ornaments that you should use on them, but that obviously doesn't mean you can't go against that and just do what makes you happy. For example, you should be doing literally anything else with Luca, like a break build since he was Boot Hill before there was Boot Hill, or like something that at the very least favors his attack. No, what I'm doing is what would normally be some poor excuse for DPS, but is actually pretty impressive for a Luca. Relics and planar ornaments will have a variety of main stats and substats, all of which are determined randomly by chance, and are also enhanced randomly by chance as you level them up. A maximum of 4 chances for substats to be upgraded. What else? God. Oh, to make your character the best they can be, they also have these things called traces. These are additional statistic boosts that just come baked into the character. All you gotta do is unlock them and level them up to whatever their maximum is and you'll be great. Both leveling up your character and their chases will cost various materials you'll need to farm for, in addition to the game's basic currency, which is credits because this is a space game, you are Luke Skywalker. Now that you know everything there is to know about the basic gameplay, I can show you some specifics, and I thought the best way of doing this would be to actually just record a little mini let's play of some Star Rail. I apologize in advance for how bad the audio quality sounded. This was not fun for me. Usually I play this game quietly and I have never recorded a let's play, so this is going to be a learning curve for both of us. Anyway, I'm just gonna go through the game and do a little bit of playing. I'll describe things as I go. This thing is just like a sub game. I think you get introduced to it shortly after the tutorial, if I'm not wrong. These things are basically the highest currency in the game. You use these to get pulls. I'll show you. I think I have enough to convert mine. I'll go up here. Oh, I don't yet. Okay, that's embarrassing. Once you get 160 of these, you can make it into one of these. You just go. Hold on, my phone is blocking the screen. You can go to this little shop and go down here, and you can use them to get those. I think the only other thing you use it is to refill your fuel, so I will show you that. That is up here. You need these to do a lot of the stuff in the game. I'll show you. So I'm trying to build Ron May right now, and there's a thing in the game that you can set whatever character you want to try to get their stuff. Since I have mine set already, I'm not gonna mess with that. But it shows you where everything is, it shows you everything you need, it keeps count for you, which I think is really cool. So, for instance, I'll just do this. Everything has little shortcuts that will take you to the places you need to be. And I get to show off my boot hill now. Yeah, my Ron May is very underleveled. I just got her. I got the free one that they gave out.
Bring it on.
Oh wait, I should do this first.
The dice have been bust. Or maybe I'll take it all.
There you go.
Spend freely. Watch your head. Take your position.
Yeah, so kind of everything I explained is down here. I just thought it would be better to provide actual visuals and kind of, like, do live gameplay of it.
There's more to life.
That's not even gonna do anything.
I hit the mark.
Okay. This boss is making noises I've literally never heard before. Oh, she's dead. Okay. Yeah, she's literally only level 20. Like, look, come on. This thing is still here. So this is what I was talking about, that screen where you can like look at what all your characters are pretty much up to. All of their buffs and stuff will be listed over here. You can also look at their stats and how they are being affected by stuff in the game. So I'll show you the difference with my Sunday. His crit damage is 230? Somehow, for some reason. I don't know why. It must be some relic or something he has. But yeah, his thing went up to that. And I'll show you what it goes up to when I field him with my Sunday. Okay, I just started over. I don't know what that was all about, but
there's no reason with those
yeah.
with the load gun. Those who dig their own grave.
I realized what I was doing wrong with the phone, so if this sounds different than yours to it, you know why.
Spend freely.
This is a boss fight that I still don't really know what I'm doing.
I'll overcome the thorns.
But like, I was able to finish it at one time, so obviously you know that I can do it.
Watch over you and guide you on your path.
Since I got my boot hill working, I'm able to do at least finish everything. He is after my boot hill.
I'll overcome the thorns.
Okay, look, this gives me a good opportunity to show you that, I didn't mention this, but harmony characters can actually also help, like, remove buffs from your characters, so when I do this, it gets rid of that debuff.
Bring it on.
It doesn't matter. He's gonna die. What is going on? I know I've done this with him before. Something's wrong. I swear I'm not bad at the game.
Or maybe I'll take it all.
May song bring us victory. Harmony and unison. Tonight, stars echo. No more times.
Oh wait, that's so weird. I didn't realize I would do that. She sings with her ultimate. She uses her ultimate, and I have the music muted. She's not saying anything. Like, hold on. Wait, does it like please not do it? Hold on. What? That's weird.
Still not ready yet.
I just had that happen to me. I don't have Robin, so I'm not really used to how sweet it is. That is so weird. Is that like literally an override? I'm getting distracted. I found some side detail. Okay, let me do what I'm supposed to do. Oh, oh.
Watch your head. This mortal. Watch over you and guide you on your path.
Oh, come on.
There's no reason in those with a loaded gun. Those who dig their own grave.
See, like, this is another one that would help to have a character who can hit, like, a bunch of targets at once to get these stupid bugs out of here. Oh! I literally don't know what the issue is. I didn't take anything off of him. I have not touched them. What is going on? I don't understand. I've literally done this with him before with no issue. I don't get what the problem is. I'm not doing anything differently. This is so weird. The one time I want to record my gameplay and I suck for no reason. I don't get it. Dude. You know what? Just forget about it. Let me try it one more time with somebody else. I'm like completely at a loss for what's happening. Okay, let me do it the way I normally do it. And then if I suck at that, then we will move on.
Come on, let's do this. Let's duel. Those with the most gun, those who dig their own grave.
You know nothing of the weight behind this power. Survive or be destroyed. There is no other choice.
If the problem literally is that I don't have my cruddy belt with me, I'm going to
Spend
swim
freely.
out. Uh-oh.
Stand down.
Serenity is before me. No dirty tricks. The dice have been
He's
buzzed.
just so focused on the
Or
good
maybe
like
I'll
what?
take it all. Watch your head. Sure, I'll play along.
They messed with the AI or something. I don't know. This is so
Bring
frustrating.
it on.
Time for some hardship.
Get out of here.
This mortal form will watch over you and guide you on your path.
Oh yeah, you're done now.
Those with the most gun, those who dig their own grave. Waiting in line for a blitz duel.
Oh, come on. What's the other one?
There's your reward.
Are you? Oh, okay. Say, are you joking? This stupid thing will not leave him alone.
It's on me.
Maybe I have to start killing these things?
Wanted to doubt farewell. All you stand still.
Oh, you would do that to me? Oh my god.
There's no reasoning with you punching.
I don't know what the problem is.
Those with the most gun, those who dig their own grave. Spin freely.
This is gonna stress me out.
The dice have been cast. Bust. Or maybe I'll take it all. Watch your head.
Yeah, kill them.
Tricks.
I don't need them this time.
All
You know nothing
Okay,
of
we'll do it, we'll do it,
survive
we'll
or be destroyed. There is no other choice. Stand down.
Serenity is before me. All you stand still. Bring it on.
Wait, I think he already has it, but I'm gonna double it up just in case.
Guide you on your path. There's your reward.
Oh, come on.
The mark. It's on me.
Please live.
There's no
You
reason.
wanna live so bad.
Those who dig their own grave.
You wanna live? Oh, shoot. Dude. Okay, save it for Sunday. Okay, here we go. Here we go, here we go.
Farewell. Let's duel. Time's up.
Ah!
It's of no consequence.
Oh. I'm sure there's
Spend
this here
freely.
again. There it goes. Okay, usually that's not so hard for me. I don't know what the difference was. But, yeah, my boot hill is good. He's like, he performs at least up to the standards of the, like, example one they give you. I'll talk about it right now. So, depending on what characters are in the warp, like, right now it's Castris and these three, it will let you try the character out, so that way if you are, like, on the fence about getting a certain character, you can try them out and see, like, how they perform. Okay, so, I'll do Acheron's trial because I like it. It would help with my mouse clicker. Oh, So you'll get like a trial team to use with her. I don't know if they like automatically give you the best team to use with a certain character, but I do know for sure that SOSO is supposed to be like pretty exclusive to Acheron, but I could be wrong. Yeah, so it'll show you like all the little shirts and stuff they have.
The gleam of old blades.
And explain all that, even if you have done it before, which I did do Acheron's already, because you get free stellar grades for doing it. Like, for instance, I wasn't gonna pull Fish out, but then I did her trial, and then I was like, oh, I need to have her. So we'll do this. And it explains all her abilities and junk.
Trickier to crack.
I'm honored by your presence. You're already here. Why not have a meal before you leave?
I feel bad for cutting the voice lines off. I know that that's probably really annoying, but like I said, I'm on time.
Time for a buzz.
I like adding fuel to the fire. A little more heat.
This combat needs optimizing. This is double speed.
I weep for the departed. It too shall fall.
Time for a buzz.
More seasoning.
I want to say that Acheron is the only Nihility character who's really a DPS. At this point, anyway.
Again.
All the other ones who are kind of intended for it have, like, fallen by the wayside.
Still waters of oblivion.
How about letting the enemy strike first? I'm honored by your presence. Since you're already here, why not have a meal before you leave?
That's all you got?
Alright, very well.
How's this taste? Nice, like my friends? Indulge yourselves!
Oh, that was pointless.
Another journey. I weep for the departed. It too shall fall.
So yeah, she's pretty good. I would recommend getting her. Just because she's cool. Oh my god, his crit damage normally sucks. What the heck? Dude. Somebody help him. Okay. Like it's not completely up to me.
Leave it to me.
Oh, if I had Luca, I could have done that guy.
There's no reason those with the loaded gun. Those who dig the
I'll bring Luca with me in the next part. When Boohill gets break effect enhancements from other characters, he's pretty good about just doing, like, breaking the whole bar in one go. At least mine is. But I don't have the capacity for that right now.
There's your reward. Let's begin.
Alright, so we'll do this. We'll do this team. Nobody die.
Come on, let's do this. Let's duel. Time's up.
Eternal.
There's no reason those with the loaded gun. Those who dig the grave.
And this is like Nihility in action. Watching punch this guy and his thing went away. So he's not all freaky anymore.
In this mortal form, I will watch over you and guide you on your path.
Waiting alive for a bullet. Bring it on. There's your reward. Come on, let's do this. Let's duel. Time's up. There's no reason with you punching.
Yeah, so when I did it before, it went out like down to about half, but since I didn't use her thing, I didn't like use her skill or anything, his break effect is significantly different. So if you are running a break-focused team or like main DPS guy, this thing that Banjo is driving me nuts. You do want her.
Those with the loaded gun. Those who dig their own grave.
Existence is unity.
Step out of it. I've heard the call.
All you stand still. Bring it on.
Yeah, but even from here, he's able to get all that out of there. I guess just for the sake of saying we did, I am just gonna play through some of the story.
I'm most jealous of people who have houses to live in.
I'm not talking to him.
We're carrying out our captain's orders. What do you want?
We made a mistake last time, and we're working hard to rectify it now.
So that's it. They were the pair who were after Firefly at the time.
It's you again. Back for more trouble?
Well, spit it out.
So you know each other.
Dude.
That's right. We're investigating a murder for the family.
Well...
Hey! The security officer instructed everyone to shut their tracks before he returned from Dream's Edge.
Even the NPCs in Pentacody are like insane. You told me that's optional. Stop. I don't want to. I don't want to. I go to Dream's Edge. You're gonna make me do it myself. Oh, here it is. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I know something bad happens to him. I don't want to find out.
Such tight security. I bet they're stumped by the case as well.
Apologies. Hold on a minute. I think I've seen you before.
How much trouble have you stirred up exactly on Penacony?
These options are so bad.
It was you last time yelling about some clockwork friendship while beating me up with that silver-haired girl. Who exactly is this Gallagher you keep talking about?
Stop.
He didn't send you all here?
It was the security officer who dispatched us?
He'll do. He's the one we've been looking for.
Sorry, no can do. The boss said that since it's a matter of the family's reputation, no one's allowed through. Everyone, please leave.
We're really sorry for troubling you.
Another way. Can you perform it again?
Oh, I don't want to do that. Why did they talk like that? Oh my god. I am not doing this right now. He's literally right there. What are they talking about? Oh wait, hold on. There's a bird nearby. I hear it. It's probably up there. Oh yeah, the stupid thing's up there. I'm dumb. I'm just stupid. Let me show you. So you can encounter things just out and about in like non-safe zones. So, oh my god, they're all floating around in there. There's puzzles in certain places. Some of them are marked with junk. Not that one. don't listen to a word I say. You can keep track of how much of the treasure and junk you've collected up here. This game is not very let's playable. How do Twitch streamers do this? I am completely at a loss for what to do. I guess we can just do more of this. But yeah, basically, it will tell you like all the stuff you still need, how many you get. You can upgrade these into like, this is the smallest version of the big thing, and you can like upgrade them. So if you have like 100 of the little ones, you can turn them into however many of the big ones eventually. And this thing, like I was talking about, this one will go up to, okay, or the conversion rate is literally written into the thing. I'm so sorry. 1 point every 18 minutes. So however that long it takes, that's how long it takes. And then, yeah, you also get these little fuel things at certain intervals for doing certain quests or unlocking certain achievements in the Battle Pass thing that I have not talked about yet. So, I'll show you the Battle Pass. This is it. Basically it's another additional thing to the daily achievement things. Why is my mouse? Okay. And you can get other jumps from this. Yeah, some pretty cool stuff. You can also pay for it and get some better stuff. Which I don't know if I completely recommend. But probably ask somebody else about that. The messages is like one of my favorite details in the whole game. I'll show you once I have the Ruga home. These guys will text you and it's really funny. Most of the time it's funny. Or it depends on the character, obviously. So yeah, they'll text you randomly and you get these little text threads. Lucas are always so cute. And I'm not just being biased. Certain threads, like if they're just casual texts, you'll get 5 shades for doing this. What else was I gonna show you? Oh. Go to here. Why is she everywhere? I just you couldn't be anybody else. I'm not gonna talk to her, but at certain points I think you have to do their specific companion quests or whatever, or at least like get to know them and finish a certain like string of quests or something like that. And you'll get visitors added to your thing. They can come and spawn randomly in the train. Usually people I like better are here, but there's also this card I could buy. Hold on, there's still hope. Oi! Okay, wait. Oh, wait. He's always hiding from me.
People who struggle with decisions are either overthinkers or lack thoughts altogether. Which are you?
Oh my god, don't tell him that. I don't know what to say. I don't want him to be mad at me. What's the right answer? Oh my god.
So, you're part of the Genius Society. If not, then what is there to boast about? What defines a fool is the inability to recognize their own shortcomings. Don't let that be you.
Oh, don't be afraid. I guess we'll talk to Jaden since he's here too.
I am very fond of the furnishings on the Express. It is apparent that whoever decorated the train truly put their heart into it. I wonder who it was. So this is a product of teamwork. The fabric of the furniture is remarkably soft. I could lie here for days. All this needs is a slow, mellow tune on the phonograph, a pot of well-tied spring, and a few Nimbus cakes.
Look at my general dog, we're gonna die.
To be here, reclining and watching shining constellations come and go as time passes one by. There could be nothing more pleasant. Nothing but a fantasy. I was not fated for such an existence. However, when work does slow down, I may return to the parlor car to put such leisure into practice.
What's falling from the roof? What is happening? What? I might be dumb. I don't know what's going on.
Whenever I step foot aboard the Express, I feel the joy of being relieved of all of my burdens.
Thank you. Hold on, can I do that? He's always over here. He's always at the wrong. Oh, I just want to look at you. He's never at the right angle for me to do it. Come on, go back up here. Did it reset? No, I don't know. I don't know when it resets who's in here. I know that when I recorded this the first time it was Luca, and that made me happy because he's never here. Okay, it's
Do you
right
want
here.
to enter the Forgotten Hall?
Memory of Chaos is basically the thing. If you play Genshin, this is like similar to Spiral Abyss. And I still can't do it because I suck. I suck big time. See, my life would be a lot easier if I could get my Donghung to work well, but that has yet to happen. And there's different like modes and versions of it. I don't really know how to describe those, so I'm not gonna. I would do a poll just to show you what it's like, but I don't want to risk it because I'm guaranteed for an Oxa and I don't want to mess that up. It's just my luck that if I pulled the one time I didn't actually want to, I would get something. So yeah, that's about it. And we'll just move on to the next part. What I liked about this game versus some of the other turn-based games I've dipped my toes into is that it's really easy to get a hang of it once you know what you're doing. Even if a boss fight or special parameters for a challenge layer on the instructions and give you something real specific you gotta do in combat, even that's pretty easy to wrap your head around. For example, I didn't know what I thought I was doing the first few times I did this boss fight, but once I figured out the right way to do it, I was able to adapt to it a little and at least get it done. Even though there are a lot of stats and a few different classifications for each character, all of those things have a simplicity to them that becomes clearer as you play. I see games with like 50 different things in the margins of the screen and I immediately get overwhelmed. The UI itself in combat isn't necessarily created by any means. This is mostly to make the game easy to play on every platform it's on, but I think that simplicity is a big part of what made it easier for me to understand, and therefore easier for the game to get more complicated without being overwhelming. There are visual cues for pretty much everything that goes on with your team. Don't know if your character's enhanced attack is ready? The basic attack button will glow a little. Can't tell if your harmony units are actually doing what they're supposed to? Most of them have visuals that last the duration of the buff they apply. I like this status effect. Oh, it's little Jeppy angry. The gameplay has a great pace both when you have the fast forward on and off, depending on what mood you're in. I love how much effort goes into the animations, they're so vibrant and expressive, and even the simple act of being in the combat makes the characters feel so much more interesting to me. They actually break the models to apply this really cool foreshortening and squash and stretch type stuff to the animations that I think gives it a lot of character. This picture of Aventurine makes me die laughing every time I see it. I genuinely sat for like 5 hours playing the game when I first started. Not even that much for the story at first, I was just really into the combat. Until Welt came on screen. After that, I was very into the story. At that point, I had never felt that way about traditional turn-based games. I actually played that little bit of Persona 5 after the fact of having played HSR, and I think that was the main reason why I was able to quickly get comfortable with that game. Despite the fact that I was playing it on an entirely different device that I was not familiar with at all, and having sessions weeks apart at a time. I know that not every similar game is going to be exactly like Star Rail, but I think that playing this game has really opened up my mind to be more accepting of and experimental with what other turn-based games I might want to try, now that I know I'm not as impatient as I thought it was to actually enjoy the pace of turn-based gameplay. As much as I like the game, HSR has its fair share of issues that aren't too dissimilar from the ones Genshin and hoyoverse's other games have. For one, most obviously, there is only one character in HSR that has darker skin than the rest of the cast, and even then his kit is only okay, and at this point needs a lot of investment and luck with relic stats to be made into a somewhat viable unit. So the game doesn't necessarily encourage you or give you a reason to use him, especially compared to other characters. This game is 2 years old, and it's not lost on me that at this point, Genshin already had 2 darker skinned characters, and continues to add what they consider darker characters up to today, even if said characters are added in few and far between. HSR hasn't even so much as made an effort to suggest they'll officially add in a playable Dark by Hoyo standards character, other than the one, count it one time, and I'm getting a little sick of it. So many characters are supposed to be people of visible color and just aren't, because the company's collective racism, or maybe just the racism of a couple dudes in power, are keeping the characters from being darker than some chocolate Nesquik powder. Like, Boot Hill is supposed to be American Indigenous, but he's literally whiter than the guy who spent his whole life underground. Huh? They do this a lot with their characters actually, where they derive direct influence from cultures populated by people with dark skin, and then just steal everything from those cultures but their skin tones. Jazz originated from Black Americans and became popularized by Black American communities through the 20s and into the 30s. One of the only black characters you really get to meet and talk to in Penacony is cool as hell, and somehow he's not playable, but the girl who can't keep her shoes on or slurs from coming out of her mouth is. Okay. This is basically the issue in most hoyoverse games, is the constant bastardization of cultures, where they seem to get things so right and make choices that genuinely take a lot of effort and obvious research, only not to take their head out of their racist bosses' behinds for 12 seconds ago, maybe we shouldn't make it so obvious that we love everything about people's cultures but the parts that we think are undesirable because we're heinously evil. I'm just, And look, don't even get me started on fan content that's just as racist, if not more, than hoyoverse. I don't ever want to see another belly dancer sexed up Kaveh or Aventurine in my life, please. You can't claim something is just simple inspiration and then simultaneously base that something on 99.9% real elements of actual people and their cultures. I can't keep bringing up Genshin, but I just don't understand how characters with such good, accurate outfits like Yunjin and Tainari and Farina were designed by hoyoverse. I hope the artists responsible for them got paid very well, and I hope everyone in opposition at the company promptly finds the tallest building and The game does have some additional problems more in the realm of gameplay, notably being very susceptible to power creep, solely because of how often the game updates. What I mean by this is that if you pulled for the strongest DPS in one update, by a few updates later, it's possible that an entirely different DPS would already be the new meta and make that character seem weaker by comparison or completely obsolete. From the perspective of someone who cares little about the meta, it kinda seems like HSR's release schedule for characters fits together in the most logical way the team can figure it out, or that certain characters are in turn made to supplement a character who's planned to come after them. Like, they just recently put the Herta in the game, an erudition character that deals quite a lot of damage and has a very well put together kit, and not only is one of her best supports intentionally a 4-star character from literally version 1, whose Eidolons you get to max out for free, a character whose release followed up after hers, Chibi, is also a very good support for the Herta. So in this way the characters' kits and such do mesh together on purpose in a way to encourage you to pull for characters who can make your favorite one better. To give a personal example, I did something very bad that turned out to be very good. I had somewhat saved for and ended up pulling on Sunday's banner and lost my 50-50, and initially my plan was to just take the loss and save for the Herta, but I have a gambling addiction and can't hold on to more than 2 pulls at once. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll just settle for raising my pity a little to try and max out my Tingyun. 4 pulls later, I get Sunday. I was not expecting that at all, so I didn't really build him or anything or have anything ready for him. He was just kind of there to look pretty and make my Luca look pretty. Anyway, 3 updates later, and luckily for me, he's supposed to be a pretty good support for a character I'm guaranteed to get and have pre-farmed for, Anoxa, which makes me very, very happy. I spent the past few weeks leveling up and building my Sunday to be ready for that. I am entirely free to play in this game, by the way, doesn't it show? That being said, a concerning thing that has developed lately about the game is that it seems to be favoring 5-star characters, with the most recently released Planet, Amphorius, having a cast made up entirely of 5-star characters at this point. The game is currently on version 3.2 if I recall correctly, and the last time we got a 4-star character added into the game was 2.5, and it was a character whose kit was already pretty much outclassed by a 5-star with a similar one in the same update. They literally debuted together on the same banner. I mentioned a character having a global passive effect where she can revive your characters even if she isn't on the team, that being Casters. For one, she's beautiful, and not only does she introduce that new element into the meta, she's also super strong. She's an anniversary character, so it kinda seems like they did everything they could to try and get people to pull for her, and I'm skipping her for an arguably much less useful Twink Man, just because he happens to remind me incredibly so of my own Star Rail OC, who for the record I made months prior to Anoxa ever being marketed. Someone did this to me on purpose. Anyway, people have pointed out that Casters sets a very bad precedent for what other possible global benefits could be implemented to your account through upcoming characters. In my opinion, it kinda just seems like they want Casters to feel very special, so I don't think that they'll just start flippantly giving global passives to characters willy-nilly. She is incredibly strong, yes, but she's also a good support for characters you might already have. At least she is the way I've been seeing her be played. Of course, some of the argument is that having to put in more effort with your favy versus cast fans only needing needing to pull her essentially can be a little frustrating, but to me that sort of struggle is kind of satisfying. I had more fun breaking my Luca than I did just getting my boot hill into a usable state. Boot hill was easy, I knew what to do, because there's really only one way to do him, but with Luca, it was a lot more challenging and fun to do the researching, farm a bunch of different relic types, and use my own personal knowledge to figure out something that works for what I want for him. And by no means is he a great main DPS yet, but he works wonders as a sub DPS for Boot Hill or my work in progress Gilf. I have him made where he can do, tentatively saying, quite a bit of damage and simultaneously fulfill his role as a nihility character. I'm personally happy just to have the bare minimum of mid-meta characters to use for endgame stuff who can clear most of it reliably, that I may have to adjust every once in a while when said meta changes, but I'm happier to have teams consisting of just the characters I like. For instance, this is the team I use when I'm just playing through the story. Between the 4 of them, only 3 of the 12 attacks they can do hit more than the one enemy, and that extends every battle into a sluggish 50-turn marathon, but I don't mind it because I like the characters in this team the most, and I enjoy playing with them. You shouldn't really feel pressured to have crazy characters. I know that endgame stuff is basically the monthly allowance for free-to-play accounts, but like I said, with some passion and patience, you can make even the lower tier characters into something usable, at least at this point anyway. Not me though, I suck. The game has gotten a few quality of life additions even in the short time that I've been playing, so I think the fluidity and the changes being made to the game are at least good efforts to keep things balanced out. Nothing in this world has made me fall head over heels in love as quickly as it happened with the settings in this game and the characters and stories that live in them. While the characters could be more visually diverse, they all seem to have such a wide range of personality, and the relationships they have with one another only make them that much more fun to watch in action. Some characters also have a quest or a string of quests that will highlight them as a person, and just because I just finished it and it's fresh in my mind, the one for Topaz makes me fumingly angry. It's both so well written in specific areas, yet equally frustrating. To keep it brief, Topaz is an agent of the IPC, the Interastral Peace Corporation, which is the biggest company in the universe and basically has dominion over most things. They're like Disney if Disney was... Well, they're like Disney. After the Nameless successfully helped Belobog rid itself of the negative impact of the Stellaron, the planet begins to rebuild and expand again, reconnecting their contact with the world beyond them. The IPC sends Topaz to collect an almost 500-year-long overdue debt that has collected so much interest that the already insurmountable number is much too big for Belobog's leader to consider repaying. Topaz sends her goons to get all up in the business of Belobog's citizens to prepare for the high possibility of overtaking Belobog by force. Basically, you're led to feel that Topaz is essentially trying to get blood from a stone and having fun throwing her power around at the discomfort of all these poor people below her in Belobog. However, it's revealed that Topaz's own planet was once successfully assisted from a takeover by the IPC, and it becomes clearer now that Topaz herself is a victim to being propagandized by the IPC and their actions. That one success alone convinced her to become a part of the very company whose interference has been the demise of at least 2 other characters' planets and families that I can think of. Because she was saved where others were hurt by the IPC, she now essentially blindly does their bidding, and only shows half a change of heart for a fleeting moment on this front near the end of the quest. I don't like Topaz because of this. I am Belobog's #1 fan and glazer, but even I can admit that having her clearly be someone who has been brainwashed by a big evil corporation does make her interesting to me. A lot of the characters are at the very least interesting in their personality or in their writing, and even if I don't necessarily like some of the characters, I can appreciate them, so thanks to a very well-timed offer to collaborate with me, my friend Somni helped convince me that the best way to at least touch on all of these characters I claim to love so much would be for us to jointly rank them and try not to eat each other's faves alive. So without further ado, here are my personal top tiers in the cast in no particular order or anything, for the most part. I don't actually have too much to say about why I ranked Lingsha here because the only exposure I've had to her so far has been completely confined to the War Dance event and revolved around Luca pretty much, so basically any friend of Luca's is a friend of mine. I enjoy her personality and she's really pretty. I'm just a big fan of healer characters in general, and she feels like everything I like about Baiju's aesthetics with a beautiful touch and just a little bit of extra pizzazz with the bunnies, which I am a big fan of, so she easily goes into this tier. The Sunday I have already touched on a little bit, so I won't go into too much depth, but having been a fringe fan of his before playing, and then finally meeting him in Penacony immediately made me one of his biggest fans. Oh, this white boy's crazy! Like crazy. If you know, you know, and if you don't, just trust me. He has what I like about traditionally nerdy, intelligent characters, while also having something really interesting to him about the things he's gone through, all the while being silly on top of it. And I didn't mention this before when I talked about the Astral Express family, but the way he goes from resenting Welt and what he represents for Sunday and his status quo on a personal level, to looking up to him as a mentor figure and someone stable and caring for him to rely on and do so without the fear of being manipulated, just makes me want to sob. I love Sunday, think whatever you want to think about him. You can take it up with the complaint department at the bottom of this video window where I have muted the words overrated and mid. Thank you, you're welcome. As mentioned before, I initially was drawn to Inoxa because he looks like and swags like my HSROC that was born in June of 2024, a whopping 6 or so months before Inoxa was ever suggested to exist to the public. Thankfully though, considering I have 125 pulls saved for a guaranteed win on him as of writing this, my conclusion on Inoxa is that he is majorly cool. I really dig the galaxy themes. I happen to like cocky, nerdy, holier-than-thou characters like Mortifi from Wuthering Waves. I would make the obvious Dr. Ratio comparison, but Inoxa is different from Ratio. Ratio doesn't think his intellect makes him better than other people. He just takes someone being blatantly careless about being uneducated as a personal affront, which, me too. Oh, Inoxa isn't taking any crap though. He thinks and knows he's better than you. He goes, even with all the weird stuff going on with my head and my existence, I will still take the time to judge you. Leave my presence, 0 points, get out. I think that's funny. I think Ratio would not like him. They should kiss it out. Speaking of kissing it out, I need Kafka to fight me with her lips on my lips. That's all I need to say next. No, but seriously, I actually started the game not wanting to like her as much as I do because I could tell from a mile away that the intention for her was supposed to be some sexy, mysterious lady you're supposed to become attracted to on purpose, but I don't really know what made me think that because she doesn't actually give me that vibe in the game. She's mysterious, yes, but that's not her only thing. The things she does and her lack of crystal clear motives make her more interesting to me. To the player, she simultaneously feels too close to knowing things about you, yet so distant as a friend or someone that at the very least you're acquainted with. Like I talked about at the beginning of the video, I think she and the other Stellaron hunters make great foils to the Nameless, and her whole film noir theming and her voice. Oh my god, her voice. She just scratches some itch in my brain that I didn't think was there before. She's one example of a character where I think all the sexy elements they added to her work out because that's her aura, that's just who she is. Joey is a character who gets massively overlooked, both because she's a once viable, now outdated unit, and because she doesn't have as much story presence as some of the other heavy hitters in the Xianzhou chapter. Despite being a government worker and having died at some point in her life, basically getting reanimated into a lifeless inhuman puppet body, the fact that she smiles at her phone gets me in the chest for some weird reason. Like, the way she canonically only has a limited amount of time to be awake and alive makes her more appreciative and curious of everything around her, and I think that's really neat. I want to show her everything. I want to show her like the internet and Annoying Orange and ASDF. Despite not being that great of a character to use in combat, I keep coming back to her to try and make her at least usable because I like her that much. I think her story and personality are so cool. For those reasons alone, that's why she's one of my absolute favorites. Fish Yao is awesome and hot. I love women who could knock me out in one punch. The reason why I think I like her so much is the same reason why I liked Rainbow Dash the most out of the 6 ponies when I was growing up. I've just always really liked the more tomboyish characters, or at the very least, women who feel very powerful and confident. One of the things I like most about her actually is how comical of a comparison she is to Jingyuan. The fact that they're both generals, but one is regularly depicted as a sleepy meepy, and the other is the type to conquer everything with drive and a strong devotion without being a sleepy meepy. Nice argument. However, I have already portrayed myself as the humble and Chad-like lacking general, and you as the seething, sleep-pilled, kitty-like dozing general. That's all I gotta say. Aventurian, like his coworker I talked about earlier, is just such a well-written character. I won't spoil a lot because I myself haven't reached the end of the storyline involving him, but the fact that his story seems to include the inverse of everything Topaz's story is just makes me love both of their writing even more. I will admit he made a terrible first impression on me when I first met him in the game, and I was so worried I was gonna end up retroactively not liking him very much, despite already having pulled both him and his light cone months prior. But the more you learn about his goals and struggles and everything that led to where he is now, you kind of start to understand why he is the way he is. The way he constantly faces people looking down on him or belittling him and being rude to him, and still manages to come out with a smile on his face and possibly the upper hand over them, just makes him infinitely more interesting to me. This man still reads newspapers. He works for the biggest technological company in the universe and simultaneously seems to distrust technology because he knows the IPC and what they do. I think just that detail alone is really cool. There's a part in the story quest for Penacony where you basically get to frolic around with him, and he's so cute and joyous during that part that I was like, okay, yeah, that's it. I'm done. I'm cooked. He's got me. He's got me! I am such a big Adventuring fan, and it seems like he loves me back too, the way I won my 50-50 and my 75-25 for him, and then he went on to bless me with good luck to win my 75-25 on Boot Hill's Light Cone. Adventuring, nothing could ever make me hate you. I kinda already talked about Zila, but what I didn't mention is that I think I like her as much as I do because she reminds me of Lucina from Fire Emblem. Not only do they kind of look similar, they have similar voices, they share a similar guarded, jaded, yet cautiously optimistic outlook on the world around them, from the viewpoint that they alone are part of what could change and improve it. They also both have a butterfly motif, and there's a heavy emphasis for both of them on having been a child who grew up in a circumstance that forced them to grow up too soon. If Zila wasn't such a low-end character at this point, I would definitely pull her on a rerun, or hopefully she'll just break my 50-50 early on someone else's banner. Rappa, I honestly don't know much about in terms of her story. The reason why I like her so much is because she reminds me of me. In universe, she kind of just spouts stuff that seems random and nonsensical to other characters. She's kind of weird and cringe, for lack of a better way to put it. I love weird girl characters a lot, and I haven't quite seen a weird girl character that feels the same way that Rappa feels to me. I think she's super cute, I love her personality, and from what little I do know about her backstory, she's a character whose life didn't get darker as she grew up, but much brighter. And I like that. Honorable little nod to the War Dance event. The fact that her first mention in game was in direct comparison to Luca already had me sold on who she was gonna be. Certainly another cool character that I think gets overlooked just because she's not very story relevant. Save a horse? Ah! I honestly like Boot Hill for the exact same reasons as I like Rappa, like almost to a T. I don't know all too much about his backstory, more than I do for Rappa at least, but Boot Hill's whimsical charm and the way he carries himself and speaks seems very interestingly at odds with the stuff he goes through. Like, I know that the depiction I was getting of him before I started playing was some flanderized version of him, that Boot Hill isn't all funny quips and quirkiness, which is what surprised me all the more and made me enjoy his characterization so much more when I actually got to playing as him. There's a lot to say about how Boot Hill and a lot of the characters in the game actually seem to get reduced to just their silliness and sex appeal, but because I know where to draw the best line of balance between who he is and what he's appreciated most for, is why I think I enjoy him and Rappa and their relationship to one another so much. He's living proof that even if you do go through some rough stuff in your life, you can find better things, meet people who you find comfort in. He shot Luca one time, and when the image leaked I was entirely ready to drop Boot Hill completely. But the way they handled it was good. He's still in my good graces, but he's on thin ice. Look at my Genius Society member dog, we're all gonna die. Herta is everything I love in a woman. She's smarter than me, cooler than me, funnier than me. I like that even though she is a bit cocky and can seem sort of full of herself, similarly to characters like Anaxa, she does still seem to have some whimsy about her and an eccentricity that I can picture someone having in real life. She feels like that weird elderly cat lady neighbor you might have, but with the added intricacy of being one of the smartest people alive. She's a genius, but she's not cold and clinical all the time. She knows and acknowledges that she's above people, but she still takes the time to interact with them and observe them, despite who they are in comparison to her. Like, this read she put on Welt is so nasty.
Oh, he has sharp eyes. He's not actually nearsighted, right? Those who like to wear glasses often conceal themselves behind those lenses. Pity I don't have a lot of free time. Otherwise, I'd like to pry into his past, too.
Why would she say that? That gives me so many other questions about him, and that's the point. So you're like, if she knows that, what else could she know about other people? Herta feels like an older lady to me, which is why I was a bit disappointed that her 5-star design wasn't a little older looking like Welt, or even like Gallagher, but I can't complain too much because her voice and the way she speaks still definitely sells that for me. I like this man, I like this old autistic man. There's so much to say about Welt. His main thing is that he's old and he's kind of strange. I dig that. He's had a long life, so he's had all these kinds of experiences that make him knowledgeable about the world and helps Himiko lead everyone along on missions and stuff. It's easy to simplify his and Himiko's relationship to the other nameless as parental just to give you a small idea of what that entails, but I do guarantee you'll find that there's more to it than that if you do play. Even though he's supposed to be like 83, Welt is a massive nerd. He's big into like model robots, like Gundam type stuff. He loves gaming. He's such a big brain that the IPC literally asked him about ways to improve their robots. That's how insane this guy is. There's also a clip of him doing this. Grown man doing this. That's crazy. He's also an artist. He used to be involved in animation on his home planet, which is Earth, and I think that is so neat. The last time Welt Yang was canonically on Earth was 2000. I am going to use this knowledge for so much evil. And his voice! Oh my god, his voice! To this day, I have never seen a character more tailor-made to my specific taste and preferences that I wholeheartedly believe Welt was made for me. However many years ago they made him, they genuinely tapped into my psyche and made up a character they knew would eventually keep me playing like the promise of a lifetime supply of those soft cookies that I love. I feel so personally about Welt, and I do consider him as tied, or at least very close to being tied with Luca on which character is my absolute favorite.
I waited for 3.5 years. White man did it in 1 week. I waited for 3.5 years. White man did it in 1 week.
I could not tell you where I would think to even begin about Luca. At face value, he may not have that much depth, and even in his story it's not that much when compared to other lore-heavy characters like Aventurine or Herta, but his simplicity and the directness with what the message of his storyline is what I think makes him the perfect character to me. On the outside, you've got this cocky, loud, fiery fighter type of a guy who knows he's hot stuff and will deny the praise, because on the inside, he's not fighting because he likes it or because he wants the attention or accolades. It's literally because he wants to give the kids in the underworld someone to look up to. I think he literally says this word for word on his profile. Like Zila, Luca grew up in the underworld with the same negative circumstances, and not only was he a soldier as a young kid, but he canonically lets the doom and gloom of living in the underworld get to him. He does not feel anything before he loses his arm protecting a child. Even after literally losing a part of himself, he gains a fire in his heart that encourages him to protect others and be a beacon of hope. He has a close older brother-like relationship with one of the playable kids in the game, Hook, but his companion quest talks about another kid, a fan of his that he grew very attached to and ended up losing. While that quest is short and doesn't go into too much depth about how this impacts Luca emotionally, more so behaviorally, we do get to see more of an exploration of how it has affected his emotions over a long period during the War Dance event, which I was surprised to hear that a lot of people skipped, which is so stupid. May you get struck by a flying ice cream truck and not live. Play it literally as soon as you unlock it, and after you do Luca's companion quest. You need the context, it makes it hurt worse. I love Luca so much. I started playing the game for Boot Hill, but I really ended up staying for Luca. Like I said, he's easily my favorite character in the game, and while he is a lesser character who probably will never be seen again since he basically got his own event, I still love him the most of everyone in the cast.
Hi, hello there. My name is Somni, or Somni Stars. I'm here with you today to explain why my top 7 Honkai Star Rail characters are in those rankings in the first place. So let's get right into it. We'll be starting off strong with my favorite Honkai Star Rail character, whom I have spent copious amounts of money on, Misha. See, I originally fell in love with Misha because of his cute design, clumsy behavior, and caring personality, but now that I've spent the better part of the past year or so deep diving into every single bit of his lore, I love him on a much deeper level. His lore is extremely complex if you don't pay attention to the story of Penacony. He's extremely well written, and he's my perfect baby angel. I love him. Next up is a character I think that, even if you haven't played Honkai Star Rail, you've heard of this character. It's Buho. It's the cowboy. See, I love cowboy characters as much as the next person does, but Buho's lore and mostly monochromatic color scheme has me in a chokehold, more of a chokehold than FNAF had on Markiplier in the 2010s. His design, peak. His lore, peak. His voice, peak. His inability to cuss, peak. This next one is certainly a dude. He's a guy. I hate everything about him. I hope he explodes. I am so sick of him. But on a more serious note, Sampo is absolutely a goated character. He's morally gray, he's devious as hell, and he's cunty. What more could you ask for? Sampo is an excellently written character who's neither good nor bad, but just there to sow the seeds of deceit and chaos. I really, really want to see more of him in the story. He has huge potential for mischief. I love him so much. We're finally on to the most beautiful, gorgeous, stunning character on my list. Oh my god. I love Serval so much. You guys do not understand. She's smart, talented, intelligent, an excellent musician, a great older sister, and the most beautiful woman on Eurilo 6. She's genuinely so badass, and she takes electric guitar to the literal sense. Like, that's wife. I'm married to her, guys. That's my wifey. Now see, for this character, I originally just wrote, he's pretty as hell, but there's so much more to him than that. And Bebirulune Danhang has the most beautiful design ever, and his lore is impeccable and deep. And did I mention that he's beautiful? So he's so deeply intertwined with the Jianqiu Luofu due to his previous incarnation, but he just wants to be Danhang, and I love him. So, we're on to a character who originally got me into Star Rail and then proceeded not to come home until Boohill's most recent banner. And I miss him so much. He's my baby. This is Arlen, the head security guard on the Herta space station. In my opinion, he's got one of the most unique personalities in the game, and he's just a sweet guy. The names of his traces are extremely questionable, but that's on Hoyoverse and not my sweet boy Arlen, #1 Arlen defender until the day that I die. Finally, last but not least, we have the elegant Mightimos of Amphorius. He's just peak all around. Peak lore, peak design, peak attitude, peak demeanor. I love Mighty so much. He's physically strong, not to mention being immortal, but most of his strength comes from within, and within lies the fact that he likes things typically deemed feminine. The color pink, being kind to children, baking, and so much more. He is a man comfortable in his femininity, and we stand that. He is so peak, dude. Thank you very much for listening to my Yap Fest. Time for why certain characters didn't make the top 7 and why certain characters didn't even make it into the My Silly Lads part of my list. Yay! So, my reasoning for liking Clara, Hook, Lynx, Bailu, and Huohua is that they're just my babies. That's it. They're my babies. For Luocha, Moza, and Qingcui, I really just think they're badass, and I think they deserve a lot more love. They're super cool, and I would want to be friends with them. I know 2 of them would probably just hate me, but Qingcui and I would get along great. Okay, long list incoming. Robin, Silverwolf, Argenti, Casterus, Trailblazer, and Danhang. They're just beautiful. That's the entire reason I put them where I put them. They're just beautiful. I love them. So my reasoning for liking Asta and Yukong is really silly. It's because they're just me and my mom. Asta is me, Yukong is my mom, and yeah, Asta's a little space freak like me, and Yukong is canonically a mother. And Yukong is very much like my mom, so yeah. So, my reasoning for not really liking Herta in the 4-star form, Fujuan, and Sparkle is just the fact that something about their designs and their personalities clashes in a way that my brain just does not like. Like, I adore when characters break out of the mold of typical character design versus their personality / lore. But it's just something about them doesn't click right for me, you know? So for Firefly and Pela, I do like them, sort of, kind of, but I also don't, because they really just don't do anything for my brain. Like, I don't get any specific feeling when I look at them character-wise. Like, I look at Firefly and I look at Pela and I don't feel anything strongly at all. It's just completely neutral. Like, I don't care for them. Like, they're good characters, I just don't care for them. Finally, last but most certainly not least on this list, is Jing Liu. I really like Jing Liu's story. I like her VA. I love her voice and everything else. She just doesn't click for me as a character, you know? It's like how I feel about Firefly and Pela, sort of. Except Jing Liu, I love so much about her, but there's just something that doesn't make her fully settle in my brain as a character that I'm capable of liking. she's a neutral standpoint for characters for me. And I hate that. I really do. I love Jing Liu so much. She's a great character, but I don't know. Also, for a little bit more context on why I said thank you for coming to my Yap Fest in my previous little rendition of my video, it's because I thought that Zephyro and I were gonna be calling to discuss these characters, but change of plans. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Moving on to the other characters I've been tasked to handle and keeping things shorter. These are ones I didn't feel as strongly about, but still really like anyway. I like March because she reminds me of Nora from Ruby, like, a lot. Even her relationship with Dan Heng is super similar to the way Nora's is to Ren, and some of their characterization I'm almost 80% sure was taken from those two. Knowing Ren and Nora going into HSR made me feel like I was already super familiar with and understood Dan Heng and March more than I would have if I didn't. March has the same kind of girly girlness and positive outlook, as well as the surprisingly capable side that comes out when it's needed, all of which Nora has. If you've seen Ruby, you probably will agree with me on this. I am extremely attracted to Dr. Ratio. I don't think anything else needs to be said, but else will be said about him. I kinda touched on his character before, but I like smart characters who are kind of full of themselves. At least that's how haughty, regal Dr. Ratio comes across to the naked eye. In truth, he isn't full of himself, he's just very offended by people who don't take education seriously when they have the means to do better. Part of his character is literally providing education to people who have less opportunity for that kind of thing, and that's like one of the most selfless things a person can do. While the way he does carry himself and the degree of importance to which he holds his own knowledge can make it seem like he's putting people down for their stupidity, I think more of his character is about how knowledge isn't so far out of reach. If he really was super full of himself, he'd want to be part of the Genius Society, but he even somewhat turns his nose up at them, because to him, their desire for knowledge comes solely from wanting the title of genius. He threw a Nepo baby out of his class one time. I think that's really funny. Truthfully, Ratio should have been up there with my favorites, but I just felt like that tier had too many people in it. But I'll go back and put him up there. Himiko and Nagaya I kind of like for the same reason. I just like a woman who carries herself so elegantly but will also put you in your place if it's needed. These two characters are the only two women I can think of in the game who I've seen be called as acting out in a mean or negative way towards the player and some of the characters, other than Zila. But knowing the context behind those reasons only made me like them more. We need more women who strike fear in the heart, I think. Speaking of striking fear in the heart, both Acheron and Hanya kind of do that for me in a different kind of way. I like the foreboding mood that each of them carry, and though we do get to kind of find out why Hanya is this way, the mystery behind Acheron's life and the breadth of her memory loss keep me wanting to find out more and more about her character and see more of her in the story. I can't talk about loving smart characters without mentioning how much I love Ruan Mei. She seems really unique in particular to me because I haven't seen a whole lot of morally questionable scientists who both have a mild personality and are women. Out of all of the notably science-related characters in the game, it kind of seems to me like she does the most. She's out here creating new life and experimenting with life forms and junk like that, and I think it's really cool. Gepard is another character who I think made a really horrible first impression, and I'm gonna lump him together with Bronya because I actually started out not liking those two at all. I'm endlessly annoyed by characters who are so blindly devoted to their leaders that they'll ignore or dismiss any suggestion of that devotion being poorly placed. I know that in and of itself is characterization, but if it lasts too long that way or doesn't have any development at all over the given storyline, I think that's really grating. These two practically spend the first half of their entire presence disregarding some pretty good arguments and claims against Belobog's leader, and I was more lenient with Bronya on it because that's literally her mom. But Gepard made me so much angrier because if I had a sister that was as smart as Serval, someone who already knew the darker inner workings of Belobog's leadership, I would trust her 100% immediately, instead of being a human roadblock for another whole act before giving in. Gepard didn't do anything but oppose the Nameless and then give in a teeny tiny bit when it mattered, and yet he gets to be in the Preservation Trailblazer splash art. Okay, whatever. The only reason I love Gepard now is because of everything outside of the main Belobog quest. He is such a sweet man and cares so much about his family and the safety of his people. He also canonically draws like hot garbage, and I think that's beautiful. I also really like his voice for some reason. I can't tell you what it is, but I don't know. I like Bronya simply because her development on that front is much more gradual and flows easier than it did for Gepard. It wasn't just a jarring change. I think her story is very easy to follow and resonate with, and she reminds me of a character that would have been in like Ever After High. I like Sushang and Yanqing for the same reason.
I am going to eat this little Chinese boy.
I really just like these two because they're silly. I like how both of them have very personal relationships with being knights, or however you'd call it. but they also have a youthful whimsy to them. I feel like I should mention Yunli here because she's a lot like that too. I just honestly don't think about her as much as I do about the other two, which is why I put her in the no opinion tier. Tingyun also went here because compared to her 5-star version, who is a fundamentally different character, I just don't think about her all that much. I understand the role she plays in the story, and both the twist involving her and the aftermath of it with Yukong really did hit me so hard I had goosebumps when I played that part that night. And it's not to say that Tingyun isn't a good character, I just don't think about her as often as I do about Fugue, who I find more interesting as a whole just based on what Tingyun is to her past, which is why Fugue was ranked higher. My beautiful Miss Natasha, you two beds didn't deserve you. I like Natasha because she's a very motherly character, and she is so selfless. There are multiple instances in the main quest and other supplemental content where she goes out of her way and takes the utmost care of her patients. That's a real doctor. None of that PhD in mathematics type stuff. The way she's canonically someone from the overworld who studied to become a doctor specifically to treat children in the underworld is such a sweet detail to me. She's easily one of the best characters in the game, and she doesn't get a lot of screen time or much combat relevance anymore these days, but she's one of my favorites out of the whole Bellabog cast. I really love the relationship she has with Luca also. Lightning round, Gyatso is literally only in this tier because he's hot and has a nice voice. I like that he's canonically disabled, but I don't like that people make gross jokes about him for some reason. I feel the need to defend his honor to the death, and I will easily do it. Jingyuan I like for a lot of the same reasons as Fei Xiao. I think it's funny that he's basically just a big kitty of a man, but he can also flip you upside down and throw you a nautical mile if he felt like it. It's really hilarious that the man in charge of a whole ship with a population of thousands of people is a centuries-old sleepy cat of a man. I like Green Eye Finn because anytime something does a parody on a Twitch streamer or an influencer in a way that doesn't annoy me makes me really happy. I think she's a good obvious parody of that type of stuff while simultaneously being done in a way that doesn't feel misplaced. I like Shirby because they are so cute. I love their design direction and general aesthetic, and their ultimate reminds me of Kaito's execution from Danganronpa V3. Oh, sorry, spoilers for Danganronpa V3. I love the relationship with all of the other Christos heirs, but the team join lines between them and Anaxa just made me love them all that much more. I know something happens to them, and I'm not ready to find out exactly what that is yet. Blade and Black Swan, I literally just don't really think about or know enough about them to really tell you it's one way or the other. I did enjoy what little I have seen of them in the story so far. I think Black Swan is pretty and I like how mysterious she is. And the same kind of goes for Blade. His menacing aura with the reasoning behind it makes him an interesting character to me, and if it was a personal ranking, these two would go higher, but when I'm being more honest with myself, they just don't cross my mind nearly as often as the others. Topaz you've already heard me talk enough crap about, so that only leaves Jade, who I won't spend too much time on lest I form an ulcer. From what little I know, I'm pretty sure she's the one who contracted Aventurine into working for the IPC, and I don't really know a whole lot about her outside of her relationship to Aventurine, but I can't come to care much about her personal story since she's somebody whose personality is very degradation heavy, and whose kit involves using a whip, when one of her main story purposes is to deal with someone who is canonically enslaved at some point. Even if I wasn't as big of an Aventurine fan as I am, I can't see any reason for myself to like this character. Her whole thing is being cold and calculated and not caring much about things other than herself and what other people can do for her and how their strife might be able to benefit her or the IPC. At least with Topaz, it's clear that she's just as much a victim to the IPC's propaganda as everyone else in the universe who's on their side, which does compel me to give her a little bit of wiggle room. Jade is pretty design-wise, that's about the only good thing I can say about her, and even then, her better design didn't even make it into the game. So here's the final ranking we've put together, based on both of our opinions. Thank you again to Somni for helping me lighten the load of all these characters. The characterization doesn't just begin and end with the storylines or stuff that's immediately obvious. When you get a character, you can go into their profile and read some additional content about them that unlocks the higher you level them up, and other than this, there's also some voice lines regarding themselves and the people they interact with, which give you a better insight into who that character is.
My master said, try not to think too much about what you lost. Think more about what you gained. Every time I look at my arm, I remember those words. Unless my injuries are serious, I try my best not to bother Natasha. Too many people need her help. They shouldn't have to suffer from my carelessness. I don't fight because I like violence or want to win the championship or to show off to anyone. I just think there are too many thugs in the underworld and the kids need a good example.
As well as this, like I kinda mentioned before, certain characters have these little quips they'll say to another character when you add them onto a team together.
You're better off believing in me than believing in prophecies.
Stop saying weird things!
There are both dangers and opportunities during interstellar travel. This is what companions are for.
It is the duty of fellow Pathstriders to fight side by side.
Well, look who it is. How about you give me a hand this time, Ratio?
Keep to yourself, gambler, and spare me the false display of concern.
Take care of yourself, Luca.
Stop worrying, Nat. I'm feeling fine.
Lord Silvergun Shira, let the evil feelings taste the power of our dazzling ninja alliance.
Come on, ninja hero. Let's turn this place upside down.
Make sure to keep yourself safe this time, March. And remember, we're all in this together.
If push comes to shove, I'm counting on you, Himeko.
Whoa, Gallagher, you're here? Check it out. I can protect everyone too.
Enough gallivanting, kid. Better get to bed early, or you won't grow.
What could possibly pique your curiosity here? Don't tell me. It's me.
We don't have many opportunities to fight alongside each other. Let's treasure this.
I won't say any specific names for fear of this video aging poorly in the case of possible current or future transgressions, but the voice actors are literally killing it. Every performance in this game is so good, and they really bring the characters to life. The sound design in the game is also stellar. Like, sometimes I just turn off the voices and the music and just listen to the sounds going on. The characters in this game are also cool, which is why I felt like it would be a good idea to at least try and touch on all of them in some way. Whether or not editing Ryan will find this as a good idea remains to be seen, but I am not her right now, and she will just have to deal with it. When you let a character's turn idle, they'll start talking to you. Most of these can be interpreted as them conversing with their team in general, or whatever in-game character they're considering is in charge of their actions. But so many of these feel so directed, and like, I actually will look up from my phone when I let a character idle a little too long.
Opportunity doesn't knock on its own, you know.
Better throw a punch, or it'll be curtains, friend.
I would not be surprised if one day they add in a character who just will genuinely go, "Can you quit screwing around?" I could talk about how much I love all the characters and the details long enough to make an entire additional video out of it. That's how much I like them and how interestingly I think they're all written with one another. The characters alone just make me love the game so much. But anyway, that's pretty much it. Hopefully the video encourages you to take the plunge if you've been considering picking up the game. I knew that I felt really stupid for not playing it earlier than what I'd started, but maybe I can be the one who helps break the vicious cycle of people sleeping on this game. Thanks for checking out the video, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.